Imagine you are standing in the control room of KEXP in Seattle.
Okay.
It's 2026. The cameras are rolling. And what you're watching unfold on the floor is something that, frankly, it just fundamentally breaks every single rule of the modern music industry playbook.
It really does.
You're looking at a rock duo. But instead of that, meticulously curated, focus grouped fashion you'd expect from a viral act, they're wearing these cheap, ill-fitting suits covered in garish polka dots.
Yeah, like truly awful suits.
Exactly. And their faces are completely obscured by these bizarre, almost grotesque masks. You cannot see an expression, a demographic, an identity, nothing. And then they start to play.
And the sound is just as disorienting as the visual, honestly.
Oh,
It's incredibly dense, it's mathematically punishing, and the instruments are tuned to this frequency grid that, well, it makes the hairs on your arms stand up.
because it feels familiar, but alien at the same time.
Exactly. The harmony feels totally alien. It actively resists categorization.
It sounds wrong, but it grooves so hard you literally can't stop listening. You are watching Angine de Poitrine.
Right.
And before we go any further down this rabbit hole, I want to make sure you, listening right now, have the name of this band locked into your brain properly, because it's a French name out of Saguenay, Quebec.
And getting it right is the first step into their universe.
Yeah, so let's break it down really quick. The first word is angine. You start with on, the soft nasal sound, followed by gene, using a soft G, like the beginning of the word vision. So angine.
Angine.
Right. The middle word is just duh, like a really short D sound.
Duh.
And finally, quatrine. You say qua, rhyming with a spa, but with a W tucked in there, and then trine at the end. Poitrine. So Angine de Poitrine.
It's a great name. And the individuals behind the project, or, well, at least the personas they project, go by Han de Poitrine and Klek de Poitrine.
Right, King and Klek.
But the premise of our deep dive today requires us to step entirely away from the biographical trivia.
Yeah, we're not doing a standard biography here.
No, not at all. The mission isn't to uncover the government names of Kun and Klek. Frankly, that is the least interesting lens through which to view this whole phenomenon.
It really is.
Our objective is to dissect why the internet, which is a space dominated by hyper-optimized, algorithm-friendly, transparent content, became absolutely obsessed with an act that offers zero transparency.
Like none.
Right. We are looking at what their explosion tells us about the mechanics of human curiosity, how people actually discover music today, and why, in an era of relentless polish, raw strangeness has emerged as the ultimate currency.
Let's interrogate that idea of transparency for a second, because the sources we're pulling from draw this really devastating contrast between this duo and, well, the standard operational procedure for a modern pop star.
Oh, it's night and day.
The current era of music basically requires an artist to be a content creator first and a musician second,
Yes, the persona is the product.
Exactly. We are expected to know an artist's morning routines, their childhood trauma, their political affiliations, who they're dating.
Before we even press play on their new single.
Right. The music is essentially just the soundtrack playing in the background of their daily, hyper-documented vlog.
Well, the industry relies heavily on parasocial relationships.
Yeah.
The whole economic model dictates that if a listener feels a profound, intimate connection to the individual, they will consume the art.
Because they feel like they're supporting a friend.
Exactly. The artist is continuously producing their own life as a consumable asset, and then Angine de Poitrine enters this ecosystem and poses this highly aggressive counterproposal. What happens when the person is entirely inaccessible?
See, I look at that proposition and I immediately see a massive disadvantage.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, we are a social species.
Yeah.
We're biologically wired to look for faces, to read micro-expressions, to search for the human eyes behind the art.
That's true.
So if you eradicate the face, if you put up a blank wall of a mask, aren't you just severing the primary emotional tether between the creator and the audience?
I can see why you'd think that.
It just seems like an incredibly risky way to launch a project. I mean, look at acts from 20 years ago who wore masks. They still had massive PR machines building lore and backstories.
Daft Punk, Slipknot, yeah.
Right. But Angine de Poitrine just dropped into the void with nothing.
Well, it seems like a disadvantage if you only view audience engagement through the lens of emotional relatability.
Okay, so what's the other lens?
If we pivot and view this through the lens of behavioral psychology, removing that expected information does something much more powerful.
What does it do?
It doesn't create a dead end, it creates an information vacuum.
An information vacuum, okay.
We are dealing with an internet culture that is fundamentally intolerant of missing information.
Oh, that's so true. People hate not knowing things online.
Right. When you present a highly compelling piece of media, but you withhold the core contextual details, who, where, why, you weaponize human curiosity.
Wow. Weaponize human curiosity.
Yeah, you trigger the Zeigarnik effect.
The what effect?
Yeah. The Zeigarnik effect. It's a psychological principle that states people remember uncompleted or interrupted tasks much better than completed ones.
Oh, interesting. So a standard pop star
Ah.
gives you a completed puzzle. You
Exactly.
get the face, the story, the song. Your brain says, okay, I understand this. And then you just move on.
Which is precisely the opposite of what Angine de Poitrine does. They hand you a puzzle with half the pieces missing and no picture on the box.
That sounds incredibly frustrating.
It is. When you encounter them, the brain is flooded with cognitive dissonance. You're asking, why the polka dots? Why is the bass tuned to a frequency that doesn't even exist on a standard piano?
Right.
Because human beings are deeply uncomfortable with unresolved stimuli, the viewer is forced to transition.
From what to what?
From a passive consumer of audio into an active investigator. The music is no longer asking, do you enjoy this melody? It is demanding, can you decipher what you are experiencing?
That shift from passive to active is everything, isn't it? It makes the listener complicit in the art.
It pulls them right in.
And what I find so brilliant about their execution is that this information vacuum, this anonymity, it isn't just a visual gimmick confined to their wardrobe.
Oh, not at all.
The anonymity, the refusal to be easily categorized, it extends into the physical architecture of the sound waves they're generating.
The music itself is wearing a mask.
Exactly. The music itself is wearing a mask.
Yeah.
And to understand how, we really have to talk about the tuning. We have to look at Angine de Poitrine's custom microtonal setup.
This is where the structural genius of the project really reveals itself.
Yeah, let's get into the weeds here.
So, for context, the overwhelming majority of Western music you have consumed in your entire life, from classical symphonies to top 40 pop, is built on the 12-tone equal temperament system.
Right, the standard piano keyboard.
Exactly. The octave is divided into 12 equal parts. That is the grid.
And our brains are super used to that grid.
We've been mapping that specific harmonic grid since we were in the womb. Angine de Poitrine fundamentally rejects that grid.
He just throws it out the window.
He utilizes a 24-tone division of the octave.
So he is literally playing the notes that exist between the keys on a piano.
Precisely.
And that requires physical modification of the instruments, right? Yeah. You can't just pick up a normal Fender Stratocaster and play 24-tone equal temper.
No, you absolutely cannot.
The frets themselves have to be physically divided, effectively doubling the amount of frets on the neck of the guitar and the bass.
The physical modification is extensive, but the acoustic result is what truly matters here.
Right.
By accessing those quarter tones, Cayenne is generating frequencies that fall completely outside the listener's lifelong acoustic conditioning.
So when he hits those notes, what happens to the brain?
When he hits a microtonal interval, it doesn't align with the harmonic series your brain is anticipating. It creates this acoustic beating, a slight dissonance.
It sounds off.
But because it is precisely mathematically divided, it doesn't sound entirely random. It sounds like a parallel universe version of music.
The best way I can conceptualize what this feels like on a visceral level for you listening is to think about predictive processing.
Oh, the staircase analogy.
Yes. Imagine you're walking down a staircase in your own house and it's pitch dark.
We've all been there.
Right. And you have walked these stairs thousands of times. Your body knows exactly how much pressure to apply, exactly where the landing is. Your brain has built a flawless predictive model.
It's automatic.
But this time, someone has moved the final step down by just like 3 inches.
Oh, that is the worst feeling.
It is. When your foot goes down, expecting that solid, familiar landing, it meets empty air for a fraction of a second before hitting the ground.
That stomach-dropping sensation.
Yes, that momentary rush of vertigo where your brain screams, error in the model. That is exactly what listening to Cooney's 24-tone riffs feels like.
It's a perfect comparison.
He sets up a groove that sounds almost like standard math rock.
Yeah.
Your brain maps the trajectory, predicts the resolution, and then bam, his fingers slide onto a quarter-tone fret.
And the ground drops out from under you.
The ground completely drops out. It is deeply disorienting. But instead of being unpleasant, it's completely thrilling.
That analogy perfectly illustrates the neurobiology of musical appreciation.
How so?
Well, our auditory cortex operates as a highly sophisticated prediction engine. When we listen to a sequence of chords, we are constantly anticipating the next logical progression.
We're always trying to guess what comes next.
Right. And when a prediction is validated, we get a minor dopamine release. It feels satisfying.
Like when a pop song hits that perfect chorus.
Exactly. But if a piece of music is entirely predictable, the brain categorizes it as trivial background noise and just stops paying attention.
Gets boring.
Conversely, if a piece of music is completely chaotic, devoid of any recognizable pattern, like, someone dropping a drum kit down a flight of stairs, the brain cannot build a predictive model at all.
And it just rejects it as noise.
It rejects the noise as irritating.
So the magic is in the tension between those two extremes.
The magic is surfing the razor's edge of the uncanny valley. And Angine de Poitrine masterfully manipulates that tension. They utilize highly recognizable, infectious rhythmic cells. They give you a groove. They allow your brain to build the predictive model.
They lull you into a false sense of security.
And just as you settle into the pocket, they deploy a microtonal shift or a mathematically jarring time signature change.
They drop you through the staircase.
They subvert the expectation, drop you through the stairs, and then, crucially, they catch you.
They bring it back.
They resolve the tension back into the groove. It requires immense compositional discipline to break the rules without shattering the song entirely.
Which brings up a fascinating structural question highlighted in the source material. If you are dealing with harmony that is inherently unstable, these microtones and time signatures that are constantly shifting, how do you keep the music anchored?
It's a huge challenge.
Right. If the notes are constantly threatening to float away into the avant-garde ether, how do you make an audience at KEXP or millions of people on YouTube actually nod their heads and dance to it?
The answer the sources provide is completely counterintuitive.
It really is. Because they borrow their structural blueprint from a genre that relies on absolute unyielding stability, which is techno.
Yes. They apply the compositional logic of electronic dance music to live analog rock instrumentation.
So you have to challenge the semantics of this.
Go for it.
Because if you listen to their output sonically, there is absolutely zero resemblance to techno.
Okay, I hear you.
There are no Roland TR-808 drum machines. There are no sweeping synthesizer pads. There is no relentless four-on-the-floor club kick drum.
Right, it's not club music.
No, it is a heavily distorted guitar, a bass, and an acoustic drum kit. The sonic palette is pure aggressive rock.
Yeah.
So calling it techno feels like a massive stretch to me. What are the sources actually implying here?
The distinction lies in separating the timbre from the architecture.
Okay, break that down for me.
You are focusing on the tone color of distorted guitars versus synthesizers. The sources are focusing on the architecture.
The structure.
Yes, how does the piece of music evolve over a timeline? Traditional rock and pop music relies on linear composition. It's a narrative journey from point A to point B.
Like reading a book.
Exactly. You have a verse, which introduces a melody. Then you move to a chorus, which provides entirely new melodic and harmonic material.
Then a bridge.
Then a bridge, which provides yet another departure. The song requires a constant influx of new musical ideas to sustain interest.
It's like moving horizontally through different rooms of a house.
That's a great way to put it. Electronic dance music, techno, however, is fundamentally vertical.
Vertical.
It is an exercise in subtractive and additive arrangement over a static foundation. A techno producer might build an 8-bar loop containing a kick drum, a hi-hat, a bass line, and a synth stab.
And that loop just plays over and over.
That loop is the entire song. The composition happens by muting and unmuting those tracks.
Ah, I see.
The producer drops out the bass for 16 bars to build tension, then brings it back. They slowly open a low-pass filter on a synthesizer to change its texture.
So they're not changing the notes, they're changing the layers.
Exactly. The listener's attention is drawn not to new melodies, but to microscopic, incremental transformations inside a repetitive framework. It is an exploration of endurance and subtle modulation.
Okay, that makes perfect sense when applied to Angine de Poitrine. When you watch Kanan play, he isn't strumming through complex chord changes in a linear fashion.
No, he's stacking.
He is building vertical stacks of sound. He plays a microtonal riff, hits a loop pedal to capture it, and then layers a counter melody right over it. He builds the ostinato in real time.
And that real-time execution is what makes the project so technically astounding.
Because it's so fragile, right?
Incredibly fragile. In a digital audio workstation like Ableton Live, a techno producer relies on a global tempo grid. everything is quantized.
The computer fixes all the mistakes.
Right. Everything is mathematically locked into place by the machine. Khan and Klek are doing this with their physical bodies, entirely unquantized.
Which is insane.
Khan has to stomp on that loop pedal at the exact millisecond the measure ends. If he's off by a fraction of a heartbeat, the loop will drift.
And what happens if it drifts?
Well, over the course of 5 minutes, that slight drift will compound, the phase will shift, and the entire vertical stack will collapse into a rhythmic train wreck.
And while he's doing that, Klek is sitting behind the drum kit, playing highly complex syncopated rhythms, forced to lock his internal metronome to Khan's organic, sweating human loops.
It's wild.
He isn't playing to a digital click track in his in-ear monitors. He is playing to a vibrating piece of wood and steel. The amount of trust and telepathic timing required between those two musicians is just staggering.
It is the reintroduction of the vulnerable, fallible human body into the aesthetic of the machine.
Yeah.
And this is exactly why the live video format, specifically that KEXP performance, was the absolute catalyst for their global explosion.
Because you have to see it to believe it.
Precisely. A polished studio recording on Spotify tells the listener what the composition sounds like. But a multi-camera live video demonstrates how the sound exists in physical space.
You can see the risk.
You can see Kedessen's foot hovering over the pedal board. You can see Klek manipulating the hi-hat. You witness the real-time construction of the architecture. The audience isn't just handed a finished product.
They're invited to watch the dangerous high-wire act of its creation.
Exactly.
It's like a magic trick where the magician invites you backstage, shows you all the trapdoors, explains the sleight of hand, and yet when the trick is performed, it is somehow even more mind-blowing.
Because you appreciate the skill.
Right. The sheer discipline required to pull off that level of vertical microtonal looping is immense. It requires the precision of a classical concert pianist.
Without a doubt.
Which is why the visual reality of the band is so violently jarring.
Oh, the outfits.
Yes. You have this music that demands ultimate technical seriousness, and it is being performed by two guys dressed like they just raided a discount Halloween store in 1995.
The visual identity is a masterclass in cognitive dissonance.
The polka dots. The ill-fitting garments.
The masks that look like melted cartoons. It is a profound, almost aggressive rejection of the sleek, monochromatic, intensely curated aesthetic usually associated with high-level experimental or math rock.
It's the ultimate bait and switch.
Yeah.
Think about it like going to a restaurant that just won 3 Michelin stars.
Okay.
You expect the pristine white tablecloths, the hushed atmosphere, the sommelier whispering in your ear, but you walk in, the walls are painted neon orange, and the head chef comes out in a cheap clown suit.
Honking a red rubber nose.
Yes. And then he serves you a life-changing molecular gastronomy tasting menu out of a plastic beach bucket.
The juxtaposition is absurd.
Totally absurd. But what it does is strip away all the pretension. It forces you to evaluate the food, or in this case, the music, entirely on its own merit.
Because the packaging is so unhelpful?
Right, because if the music is mediocre, the clown suit is just an obnoxious, try-hard prank. But because the music is undeniable, the clown suit elevates into a brilliant critique of the industry's obsession with packaging.
The aesthetic forces the audience to confront their own biases about what serious art is supposed to look like.
Yeah, it really holds up a mirror.
However, the most critical piece of this entire visual puzzle, according to the sources, is the origin story.
Oh, I love this part.
We have to look at how this aesthetic actually materialized, because it was not a cynical, top-down marketing strategy devised in a boardroom to exploit algorithmic weirdness.
Not at all. It was an entirely pragmatic, accidental solution to a highly specific local problem.
Exactly.
We have to rewind to 2019 in Saguenay, Quebec. The sources paint this picture of a standard local music scene. Klee and Klek are just two musicians trying to get stage time.
They just want to play.
They want to play a gig at a local venue, but they want to play the same venue twice, presumably within a very short time frame. And they don't want the promoters or the local audience to realize it's the same guys double dipping on the local gig economy.
So they require a disguise.
Just a basic disguise.
Not to make a profound artistic statement about the death of the author or the nature of identity in the digital age, but simply to hustle a second booking.
A literal Scooby-Doo disguise to sneak past the club owner.
It's hilarious.
They throw on whatever ridiculous, cheap materials they could find, the polka dots, the masks. It is purely functional anonymity. But the magic happens in what follows.
Because once they get on stage in those disguises, the limitation fundamentally alters their performance.
Abso.
Well, when you remove your face, you remove the social pressure of your identity. You can move differently, play differently, inhabit a completely different kinetic space.
You're not worrying about how you look while you play.
Right. That altered performance technique then slowly calcifies into a permanent aesthetic. And finally, that aesthetic becomes the entire identity of the project.
It's the organic evolution that makes it bulletproof.
Absolutely.
In the current landscape, audiences have incredibly sensitive radar for manufactured eccentricity.
We spot it a mile away.
We've all seen the industry plants, the artists who emerge out of nowhere with a massive budget, a cryptic website, an intensely stylized wardrobe that probably cost $10,000, and the carefully leaked fake mythology.
The audience immediately smells the marketing team pulling the strings.
And they reject it because it feels cynical. But Angine de Poitrine's weirdness feels completely authentic because it was born out of a cheap, funny accident.
They didn't build the aesthetic to sell the music. The aesthetic was just a byproduct of their local environment.
And this organic authenticity feeds directly into the categorization problem we discussed earlier.
Yes, the brain's desperate need to put things in boxes to make sense of the world.
People look at it and ask, is this a highly serious math rock project pushing the boundaries of Western acoustic theory?
Or is it an elaborate performance art piece critiquing the music industry?
Or is it just a localized comedy act that got way out of hand? Is it a meme?
Because it genuinely fits the criteria for all of those categories, it simultaneously belongs to none of them.
It's a paradox.
The categorization process in the brain is completely short-circuited, and when the human brain cannot resolve a contradiction, it cannot discard the stimulus.
It gets stuck.
It remains fixated. It keeps circling the puzzle, looking for the angle that will finally make the picture make sense.
And this psychological fixation on the individual level scales up to become a massive, uncontrollable force when exposed to the mechanics of the internet.
It's the perfect storm.
That inability to categorize doesn't just confuse a single viewer. It breaks the entire algorithmic distribution model in the most profitable way possible.
The sources describe this as the what is this economy.
What is this economy? Break that down for me.
Well, the currency of the modern internet is not quality, nor is it necessarily relatability. The ultimate currency is watch time or retention.
Keeping eyeballs on the screen.
Exactly. The algorithms that govern platforms like YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram do not have taste. They are highly sophisticated mathematical models designed to recognize patterns in human behavior that indicate a user is staying on the platform.
Right. If we look at standard viral content, it usually operates on a premise of instant gratification.
Fast and easy to digest.
You get a highly saturated thumbnail, a hook within the first 1.5 seconds, and a payoff that is easily digested and immediately understood. You laugh, you hit like, you scroll.
But Angine de Poitrine subverts that entirely.
They do the exact opposite.
Their content relies on deep confusion as an invitation.
Confusion as an invitation. I love that phrasing.
When a user is served a clip of these two polka-dotted figures playing a microtonal polyrhythmic loop, their brain doesn't instantly comprehend it.
No, it's too weird.
The user doesn't scroll past because the pattern recognition fails. They freeze.
They have to figure out what they're looking at.
They watch the video a second time to try and map the rhythm. They watch it a third time to look closely at the fretboard modifications.
And every repeated viewing signals to the recommendation algorithm that this piece of content is highly engaging.
Exactly. But the true algorithmic multiplier is what happens next.
The comments.
The comments. The user, unable to resolve the cognitive dissonance on their own, navigates to the comment section seeking context.
And the comment section for Angine de Poitrine isn't your standard collection of fire emojis or great song platitude.
No, it becomes a forensic laboratory.
It really does. It operates as a secondary, highly active layer of the music itself.
It becomes a decentralized analysis of the art. You have one faction of users debating whether the guitar is in a 24-tone equal temperament or if it's utilizing just intonation.
People busting out their music degrees.
Right. Another faction is meticulously mapping out the time signatures, trying to figure out if a riff is in 78 or 13/16.
Arguing over the downbeat.
Another group is analyzing the latency of Kahn's loop pedals. And, inevitably, a massive cohort is engaging in internet sleuthing, trying to match the visible knuckles and chin shapes of the musicians to known artists in the Quebec scene.
Trying to uncover their real identity.
Exactly. The engagement metrics go absolutely through the roof.
Which brings up a critical debate. You hear this narrative constantly in the industry. The algorithm made them famous.
You hear that all the time.
People point to the rapid exponential growth of their KEXP video and attribute the success entirely to the machine. But I have to push back against that framing.
Okay, why?
Well, the algorithm is notorious for promoting shallow outrage, misinformation, and low-effort shock value. If the algorithm is just blindly feeding on the sheer volume of confused arguments in the comments section, is it really rewarding their musical genius? Or is it just exploiting a bizarre spectacle?
That's a fair question.
Isn't the algorithm just doing what it does with a car crash?
It is a valid skepticism, but we must differentiate between creation and amplification.
Okay, distinguish those for me.
The algorithm cannot manufacture genuine musical complexity. It cannot write a vertical 24-tone techno-rock composition.
True.
It is a deeply agnostic mirror. What the algorithm did was recognize the incredibly dense behavioral data generated by the substance of the project.
The actual art underneath the weirdness.
Exactly. The visual novelty, the extreme technical difficulty, the organic mystery, these were intrinsic properties built by Kahn and Klek over years of playing. The algorithm simply acted as a frictionless distribution network, recognizing that the density of the art was generating unprecedented retention.
So the algorithm didn't invent the fire, it just poured an ocean of gasoline on it.
Exactly.
And by doing so, it allowed Angine de Poitrine to achieve something that experimental musicians have been struggling to do for a century. They completely inverted the traditional funnel of avant-garde art.
The historical trajectory of experimental music is one of pushing a boulder uphill.
Oh, it's so hard.
Artists operating in microtonality or complex polyrhythms usually exist in tiny, highly insulated niches. They play basements, art galleries, and academic conservatories.
To crowds of like 10 people.
Right. They spend their entire careers trying to push their difficult music out to a broader public, often facing immense resistance because the barrier to entry is so high.
They are constantly trying to convince people to eat their musical vegetables.
But Angine de Poitrine built a universe so visually alluring, so drenched in mystery and internet-friendly strangeness that they didn't have to push the music out at all.
They reversed the polarity.
They created a gravitational pull so strong that mass audiences came hunting for them.
The audience willingly waded into highly complex music theory just to satisfy their curiosity about the spectacle.
Which introduces a profound pedagogical shift. The sources highlight that Angine de Poitrine acts as a massive educational force entirely by accident.
They're utilizing confusion as the ultimate educator.
It really is a Trojan horse.
Millions of people clicked on a video because they saw a funny thumbnail of two guys in polka dot masks. They came for the meme.
But because the music underneath the aesthetic was so fundamentally solid, so rooted in that infectious vertical techno groove, they stayed.
And without even realizing it, these casual listeners received a masterclass in non-Western tuning systems and non-linear arrangement.
It exposes a deep flaw in how avant-garde and experimental music is traditionally gate-kept.
Let's talk about that gatekeeping.
Historically, the presentation of complex music comes laced with an air of academic elitism. There is an unspoken and sometimes loudly spoken assumption that an audience member must possess a certain level of theoretical knowledge before they are qualified to engage with the art.
Like, you have to earn the right to listen to it.
Exactly. The scene demands that you understand the history of minimalism or the mechanics of a polyrhythm before you are allowed to enjoy the performance.
The old "you just don't get it because you haven't read the right books" defense. It's incredibly alienating.
It places pedagogy before curiosity. Angine de Poitrine proves that this order is backward.
You don't need the textbook first.
You do not need to hold a degree in acoustics to feel the physical thrill of a quarter-tone drop. You do not need to understand subtractive synthesis to nod your head to a perfectly executed live loop.
The body feels it before the brain understands it.
Curiosity must be the vanguard. The trajectory of a new Angine de Poitrine fan is highly predictable and entirely experiential.
Right, walk me through that trajectory.
First, there is the visceral reaction, what the hell is this?
Naturally.
Second, the mechanical curiosity, how are they physically making that sound?
Looking at the fretboard, watching the pedals.
Third, the aesthetic appreciation. Why does this dissonant noise feel so undeniably good? It is only at the very end of that journey that the listener opens a new tab, searches for an explanation, and thinks, so this is what microtonality is.
The mystery is the hook that drags you kicking and screaming into the classroom.
It really is.
But we have to address the dark side of that mystery.
The unmasking.
Yes, because the internet is fundamentally incapable of letting a mystery breathe.
Mm.
It views every unknown as an affront to its omniscience.
People just can't let it go.
The obsession with unmasking Khan and Klek is intense. There are entire subreddits dedicated to analyzing the curvature of their ears, enhancing the lighting on old, grainy tour posters from Saguenay, matching the scratch marks on their guitar bodies to instruments played in other local bands.
It's obsessive.
The audience feels this overwhelming drive to solve the puzzle.
This relentless sleuthing brings up a vital boundary issue. The project was explicitly designed to exist behind this wall of anonymity.
It's a core pillar of the art.
The art requires the absence of the biographical creator to function optimally. So the pertinent question for cultural analysis isn't, what are the legal names of the men behind the masks?
Right.
The much more revealing question is, why do we, as a consuming public, feel so incredibly entitled to that information?
I think it comes right back to the parasocial conditioning we talked about at the beginning.
How so?
We have been trained for a decade to believe that buying a concert ticket or streaming an album entitles us to the artist's soul. We want the behind-the-scenes documentary. We want the raw, emotional confession.
We want all of them.
When an artist looks at the audience and says, "No, you only get the art, you do not get me," it feels like a breach of the modern social contract. We unmask them to regain control.
But consider what happens when that control is achieved.
The magic dies.
If the internet successfully unmasks them, and it turns out they are simply two highly skilled, entirely regular musicians from Quebec who like coffee and have normal lives, the magic dissipates.
The information vacuum is filled with mundane reality.
The puzzle is solved, the box goes back on the shelf, and we move on to the next piece of content.
It's kind of tragic when you think about it.
Exactly. The mask operates as a canvas for the audience's projection. By maintaining the boundary, by refusing to provide the final piece of the puzzle, the mystery stops being a temporary obstacle and becomes a permanent, structural pillar of the art itself.
The mythology is allowed to outgrow the men.
It elevates from a trivia question into a legend.
If we pull all these threads together, the sheer irony of Angine de Poitrine's dominance is just breathtaking.
It's a massive contradiction.
We are existing in a cultural moment where the algorithm demands absolute transparency, where every artist is ground down into a hyper-polished, perfectly optimized, relentlessly oversharing brand.
And yet this duo from Saguenay achieved global virality by doing the exact opposite.
They hid their faces. They played music that mathematically defies Western tuning. They built songs through repetitive, grueling techno logic rather than catchy pop hooks.
And it is vital to recognize that they did not invent any of these individual components.
They weren't the first.
They are not the first musicians to divide the octave into 24 tones. They are not the first to use live looping pedals, nor the first to apply electronic structures to acoustic instruments. And they are certainly not the first band to wear masks on stage.
So what made them the ones to break through?
Their genius, their true innovation, lies entirely in the synthesis. They found the blank, unoccupied space at the intersection of all these disciplines and built a universe there. They created a profound cognitive dissonance that the world simply could not ignore.
It really forces you to examine your own relationship with the digital world.
It does.
We are drowning in information. We are constantly spoon-fed context, explanations, and curated realities until we are completely numb. Exploring Angine de Poitrine reveals that, fundamentally, humans don't want everything explained.
We want some mystery left.
We are desperate for the unknown. We want something weird, something abrasive, something we have to actively work to understand.
Which leads to a much broader societal implication.
Oh.
If we look beyond music, the philosophy driving this masked duo poses a direct challenge to how we navigate our own lives.
In what way?
We are all subjected to the pressure of the personal brand. Whether on social media and corporate networking or in our social circles, the imperative is always to share more, to optimize our image, to broadcast every milestone and thought.
Always be posting.
Exactly. But Angine de Poitrine proves that withholding information is a profound form of power. It begs the question. In a world screaming for total transparency, could stepping back, embracing your own information vacuum, and allowing yourself to remain partially unknown actually be the most compelling thing you can do?
That is a staggering thought to carry with you. Maybe the most rebellious act isn't shouting louder to be heard over all the noise. Maybe it's putting on a mask, slipping into the spaces between the notes, and letting the world wonder what you're actually building in the dark.
Well said.
Something to think about. Until next time.